you experience loneliness? Like, what does it feel like? What is loneliness to you?
Interesting. I think loneliness is disconnection, like feeling not connected. Because I guess the opposite, which would be kind of belonging and community and fellowship, that's all about connection. And so, yeah, there's something about with loneliness being cut off or rupture.
Me, I think a lot of loneliness. That's an interesting. It's how have I experienced loneliness? I think loneliness is multifaceted in my life. It's occurred at school, in family, in just life experience, to be honest. But I think what my experience with it is that it's a very consuming feeling, which informs certain destructive actions in my life.
I think I need to go back to a time in my life which was really, really difficult. That was the worst time in terms of the real loneliness I had. And this was after my divorce. And I became a single parent, and I had 2 children, one of whom has profound learning difficulties. And I remember on several nights just having to lie next to his bed and try and get him to sleep. And in the middle of the night, just feeling this total sense of being alone. That was a really difficult time. I also remember going to church with him and having a sort of mask on, a smiley mask, where I was okay, but inside I wasn't okay. And again, I felt that loneliness, and I felt there was a difference between what I was looking like and what I was feeling like, because inside I was really falling apart.
The loss of the last remaining friend of all the friends I've had throughout my life, and the last one passed away last year, and so yes, I do feel the loss of having any friends my own age. Of course, 5 years ago I lost my husband of 58 years. And anyone who has lost anyone close to them who they haven't lived with for that long time will know what that is like. It takes a long time to adjust.
What sort of relationships do you have around you that are authentic and help you to either navigate or to come out of loneliness?
I think, this word is really overused a lot, isn't it? So it's almost stripped of meaning, but authenticity is a big quality of those relationships that give me comfort and take me out of loneliness. And I guess unpacking what that really feels like is something around a non-judgment. I feel like if I sense that person isn't judging me and they know I'm not judging them, that makes it an authentic exchange where I can be I can be real, including flawed and not perfect and all things.
My friendship group, I think, has informed me of like what relationships, like levels of relationship that exist. I think that I was an only child, so didn't have any siblings, but yeah, like over life and just navigating different circles, I came to a place where, man, people don't really care too much. And we live in a society where everyone's using each other just for this or that personal gain, whatever it is, whatever the gain is in, it's all using and it's all transactional. Like me and my best mate talk about it all the time, but I basically came to a place where I had to compartmentalize friends, and I split people up into supporters and soldiers.
Yeah, I've got a lot of amazing friends, and at that point in my life, which I've mentioned, that was when they really all came to the fore. They would pop round. These were all local people. They would pop round regularly when I got the kids to bed to see how I was doing, whether there's anything they could help with or talk through. And I also have a friend who was literally 2 doors away, and she came round one day and she said, I would love to take you to a Catholic church north of Liverpool. where there's a healing service, and I think that would really, really help you with all of the emotions that you're going through. So she took me off there. It was absolutely lovely. The priests were just so gentle. We prayed together, and I kind of unburdened myself. And on the way home, she was lovely. She, listened to my issues, and the lovely thing was she didn't judge. She was just there for me, and the whole evening was lovely.
Well, obviously, I'm fortunate in having a very supportive family. I've got a son, daughters, and wonderful grandchildren, 2 granddaughters and 2 grandsons, and they're tremendously supportive. And I do value that and realise that is a tremendous help in having a strong mental attitude, and a number of very good friends of a much younger age, anything from 40 to the early 70s.
What advice might you give to a friend, or even to someone who might be listening, who actually would feel like they don't have those kind of relationships?
Wow, that's a biggie. Because I'm incredibly blessed, so then when you think about the fact that actually that's not a given, it's painful to think. And I think I would, because of the sort of place I'm at in my life, I would say pray.
Yeah.
And whatever that means, that can mean just saying help.
Listen, but it's tough. It's tough because if I didn't have these relationships, and the thing is, I don't even know what advice, because that's not my situation. Because I could only just pray for them as an outsider. I don't have any, in terms of advice that I could give how to navigate that without mates. Even I have mates, and I turn to bad things sometimes. I have mates that already turn to bad things. So I'm not even the person to give advice, but it's go to people, genuine people, for prayer, for life, for community. If you are lonely, you have no proper mates, most likely you're somebody that recognizes unconditional love, because maybe you don't have it, or maybe you've never experienced it, at which point go out and try and meet people in certain spaces, and whatever those spaces, whatever place God brings you into, God will have his hand. Just look for it.
I think I would say to people, as I have found, that the importance is to connect with people. Think about where your connections are. Do you work? Do you have connections with people there where maybe you go out for meals or you go to the pub? What about your hobbies, your interests? Do you have friends there? What about any family members even? Maybe they're far away, but you could phone them up. Don't do this alone. Make sure that you connect some way with somebody you know well and somebody that you can trust. Make sure that you connect with people who boost you up, not falsely, but boost you up rather than pull you down. Don't get involved with people who are negative, people who tell you shouldn't be thinking that way or whatever, but just connect with people who can bring out the best of you and help you.
Well, the most helpful thing is to feel you've got something to care for, because having had people in one's life and having cared for them, it's very important to have something. If you can have a pet of some sort, or a cat, or whatever, that's tremendous help. I personally have a lot of lovely indoor plants to care for, and they're like my children now.
You have mentioned faith throughout, which is wonderful, and clearly it is, as you said, in this season, it's becoming more and more important. Yeah, there may not be, but is there anything else around faith, and I guess who your faith is in, or anything? I don't want to be that sounds like a leading question, but anything around faith and this question of loneliness that you feel to share that might be helpful for
Yeah.
somebody?
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, I have realised my human limitations, and first of all, it's my human limitations. But I've also realised that because I'm surrounded by humans that I'm desperate to connect with, they're the same as me, and they have their limitations. And so for me, as a Christian, I've actually had no choice but to hand things over to God, to Jesus.
You know what? I think there is always one thing that I want to, if I had to die tomorrow, I'd want this plastered all over every shop in London, every shop in the city, in the world. And that's the 1 Corinthians verse, because it's when you're lonely, when you're lonely, you feel like no one feels like you, and you feel like no one knows what you're feeling. But I don't know if it was just my culture, but there is always a valley deeper and a mountain higher. But there's always a valley and there is always a mountain, and there's always somebody that can relate. And the thing is with it is that if you got to examine your heart, and if your heart is genuine and pure, God is for you. So you have nothing to worry about, because no one can talk any kind of rubbish to you, because no one can put you down, because they don't even know you. So then it's like that verse in 1 Corinthians. You might need to help me out exactly. But
Which verse is it?
God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the
Okay.
wise.
Yeah.
God chose what is not poor and low in the world, despised in the world. Do you know all of that verse that just puts everything in society on its head?
Yeah.
Like,
1
if you just
Corinthians
have
1.
hope, 1 Corinthians 1, yeah.
Yeah.
If you have hope in that God is gonna redeem everything, like just know that story in your head and know that that's gonna happen, even though you don't experience it yet. Just knowing that's gonna happen.
I think my personal walk with God has been amazing in helping me. The Bible has a set of psalms which are kind of like songs or poems where the writers talk a lot about their feelings of loneliness or feelings of being in a lot of trouble. And one of the where people are, the psalmist is actually asking for help. And one of the Psalms 139, says, "You have searched me, God, and you know me. You know when I stand and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar." So this tells us that God knows all about us. He understands our emotions. He understands when we're feeling down. And he doesn't judge us. He doesn't just say, "Oh, get over yourself." He says, "I know what you do, what's happening to you. I formed you, and I'm aware of you, and I'm always near you." And in another part of the Bible, in the book of Jeremiah, God says to the people, "Actually, I've got plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to bring you a future and a hope." And that's amazing. That's really helped me to know that with that period of time, it would pass. It wasn't going to last forever. God did have a plan for me and my family.
Faith has been important to me because I've always believed that life was a journey. It had a start when we were born, and it's going to have a destination. And it's how we use all the experiences in life, including the lonely times that we've had during our lives, that will determine whether we're able to continue with that story or whether we're going to give up the struggle. And I've always had that faith that I must continue with the story because I have not yet reached my destination.